So I just got done touring that home right over there with a client that flew in from out of state. And after the tour, they had asked me, hey, like, what are some unexpected things that people just don't tell you about Dallas? You know, what are the kind of hidden realities of living here, both on the positive and the negative side? So I had to think about that for a second, but we ended up coming up with a list of 5 things that people just don't say about Dallas, Texas, that we're gonna cover in this video today since I just shared it with a client. Hey, my name is Michael Caraway. I'm a realtor here in the DFW Metroplex, and let's get into this video right now. So I think that the first thing that people just don't tell you about Dallas is that if you live in the suburbs, you actually don't need to rely on Dallas all that much. Now, rewinding a little bit, you know, I moved to Dallas from Denver, Colorado, and living in Denver, there's some great suburbs there, honestly, but you still kind of had to rely on Denver if you wanted to, you know, go to work, or if you needed to go out for a really nice restaurant. You're gonna have way more options in Denver than the Denver suburbs, all right? So we moved down to Dallas and kind of assumed that there's gonna be a similar situation, but we actually found ourselves staying in the suburbs. We really don't go downtown into Dallas all that often because, you know, in the north suburbs where we live, there's just so much to do, whether it be good dining, good shopping, entertainment options. You have plenty to do in the suburbs. And so that's one of the nice things about this area. Even if you're talking about employment, there's a ton of employment that happens in the suburbs of Dallas that you just don't need to rely on Dallas all that often. You know, and that can be appealing to a lot of people if you're looking for, you know, not necessarily a super fast-paced city life. You don't want to have to commute to a downtown area all the time. You could be fine just living in a suburban area. Then this is a great place for you because you have everything that you need within that 30-minute radius of whatever suburb that you are in the northern suburbs of Dallas. Now, I wouldn't say that's true for every portion of the suburbs in Dallas. You know, if you're gonna be more on the south side or the more eastern side of the metro, you're not gonna have as many employment options. You're probably not gonna have as many nice restaurants and shopping and all that kind of stuff, but still have a relatively good amount of things to do compared to other suburbs that I've been in. The second thing that people just don't tell you about Dallas is that the heat really isn't all that bad. So right now we're approaching summer, we're in June, and honestly, it's been a really wet spring. Like, it has rained more than it has ever rained since I've been here in Dallas, which is good for the grass and all the greenery, good for the drought conditions later on in the summer. But for humidity wise, it's the most humid that it's been since I've lived in Dallas as a result of all the rain. And so June, we're sitting, you know, in the high 80s to, you know, low 90s. And it's felt very, very hot recently because of that little bit of humidity. Thankfully, that's not usually the case. Typically, you don't have as much humidity, you do have more heat, but it's way more comfortable from my perspective to deal with the higher heat if you don't have to deal with the humidity. So on a typical year, it feels way more comfortable to me during the summer of Dallas compared to a place like where I grew up in Iowa, where the humidity is very, very high from all the crops. It's just a humid region up there in the Midwest. And so I find the heat very tolerable typically, even though you might have a streak of 100-degree days. I think we had 30 100-degree days in a row last year. You know, you might have that higher temperature, but it can be somewhat comfortable because of the lower humidity. But it's hot, like, you can't get around it. You're not gonna wanna be outside in the middle of the day necessarily, and it is a huge plus to have a pool. Hey, real quick, we're gonna get back to the list, but if you are looking to make the move to the DFW Metro, you want some guidance, you want some help in finding the right home here, then reach out to me. We'll love the opportunity to help you find the perfect place to call home here in the DFW Metro. Now, the other thing that people just don't tell you about Texas is that there's so many manufactured entertainment options down here, it's unreal. What is manufactured entertainment? I literally just made that word up. I don't know if it's a legit thing or not, but it's the word that came to mind that kind of describes what I'm talking about right now, which is these huge new facilities that are popping up for different entertainment options. For example, indoor go-karting, you have virtual reality experiences, you've got game show pop-ups that are happening. You've got things like Pop Stroke, which is a Tiger Woods designed mini golf course that popped up. There's outdoor surfing place that just popped up. There's a place that's popping up very soon called World Springs, which is gonna have tons of different mineral pools that are designed to mimic different mineral pools around the world. You know, it's absolutely crazy. Like, you don't have a ton of naturally cool things about Texas, to be honest, but you do have all these manufactured entertainment spots that are popping up to try to make up for that. And so you do have a lot of unique entertainment options here, you know, whether you use that, you know, as a family on the weekends or when guests come into town. You have a lot of unique things that you're not necessarily gonna get in other places. Okay, so the other thing that people just don't really tell you about Dallas, Texas, and I'm gonna be really honest with you on this one, you know, the natural beauty here is just, it just doesn't do it for me. It's, there's nothing quite inspiring about the landscape or just the environment around you here in Texas. This is pretty typical of what you can expect if you are looking for, you know, the outdoors in Texas. You're gonna see open fields with a bunch of weeds, maybe a lake, which is back there. It's pretty muddy, but pretty flat. You got some areas that are wooded, not a ton of hiking trails, not a ton of biking trails. Outdoor recreation is a little bit tough here in Texas, in the Dallas area. So coming from Colorado, you know, that's a little bit of a struggle for me. You have a few nature preserves like Oak Point Park or Arbor Hills, which are nice to be able to get away into. The problem is you just don't have a ton of those nature preserves, or you know, you don't have a ton of options when it comes to hiking. So some of those places over time get a little old. And so that's a huge complaint that I, as well as many other people that are into the outdoors, have about this area, because you're not really gonna change that. So it has to be something that you're okay with, or you're gonna be moving down here. One thing that I've been able to kind of like mitigate that feeling of not having the outdoor, the beauty around us, is that, you know, we'll go on trips to Broken Bow, which is like 3 hours away, where you get some good mountains, more like foothills. You get some hiking, you get a beautiful lake. Definitely feels like more outdoor country up there, but you're not gonna necessarily get that in Texas. So it's something you gotta be able to deal with. And the other thing that people just don't tell you about living in Dallas, Texas, is that the homes here are second to none. Like, to be honest, I didn't realize there was such a big gap between the beauty of a Texas home compared to other places in the US. You know, especially coming from like where I came from in Iowa or Colorado, homes that are built there that, you know, are for the average Joe, just aren't that inspiring. They're not designed that well. It's kind of just, they put up homes that are cheap and they don't really focus on design. But in Texas, it's hard to find a bad looking home. And of course, that first big reason on why that is that most homes here are built with brick exteriors. And so brick homes typically tend to be a little bit more beautiful if you're into a little bit more of a traditional design. So that helps. You're not getting cheap siding in neighborhoods. It really adds to the curb appeal. But even on the lower price point homes, especially if you're leaning more towards new construction, you know, these builders are putting a lot of effort into the design, even though it's not a higher price point. And you know, if you go to a place like Colorado and you look at the homes that they're building out there for the lower price point homes, the designs just aren't that inspiring. They're pretty standard. They're not really designed with a modern consumer in mind for the most part. But that's just one of the fortunate parts about Texas, is that it's gonna be easier for you to find a beautiful home here. And hey, that was a quick list, but if you wanna learn about even more about the truth about living in Dallas, Texas, then watch this video right here. And until next time, I'll see you later.